Two divers were recovering a valuable item underwater. Just as they were preparing to return to the surface, one of them suddenly turned around without any warning and frantically swam deeper into the cave. His partner desperately chased after him, but simply couldn't keep up. Days later, a rescue team arrived at the same body of water to search for him, and the exact same thing happened again. Another diver suddenly changed direction and vanished into the abyss without ever looking back. What secret was hidden down there? And all of this happened in a real incident at Emerald Springs in Florida. Between residential neighborhoods in Orlando, Florida, there is a circular body of water about 45 meters wide. The water is emerald green, so locals call it Emerald Springs. The first 15 meters below the surface are relatively spacious, but after that, the rock walls suddenly narrow into a vertical shaft less than 10 meters wide, like a giant underwater chimney. This chimney extends down to a depth of 46 meters, where no natural light can reach. Beyond 46 meters, the cave suddenly opens again into a massive dome, dozens of meters wide and about 150 meters deep. Below that lies unexplored territory no human has fully mapped. A famous American diver named Hal Watts used this place as a training ground for cave divers. He held enormous status in the American diving community and was also the founder of a professional diving organization. The students he trained were exceptionally skilled. One of them was a 16-year-old named Fred Schmidt, who earned his cave diving certification at just 14 years old and was one of the few young divers in Orlando capable of reaching depths beyond 100 meters. For simplicity, we'll refer to them as the veteran and the prodigy. On August 11, 1970, the veteran brought the prodigy to Emerald Springs for training. As the session ended, the prodigy accidentally dropped a diving vest worth $142, which slowly sank into the depths below. At the time, $142 was worth a small fortune by today's standards. Unwilling to give up on it, the two agreed to return 2 days later specifically to retrieve it. Their families tried to talk them out of it, saying it wasn't worth risking their lives again, but neither of them listened. One was a fearless young talent, the other a legendary diver. Together, they were never going to give up easily. At 9:17 in the morning on August 13th, the two entered the water from the north side of Emerald Springs. Back then, cave diving safety regulations were still extremely underdeveloped and relied heavily on a diver's personal experience and courage. Compared to modern equipment, what they use now looks terrifyingly primitive. Simple dual hose regulators and steel high-pressure air tanks. The deeper they descended with such gear, the greater the risk of nitrogen narcosis. The guideline in Emerald Springs only extended to 46 meters. Beyond that was considered forbidden territory that almost nobody dared to enter. But neither of them cared. One believed his experience was more than enough, while the other trusted completely in his own skill. They followed the guideline rapidly downward until they reached its end. Beyond that point was total darkness, with only their flashlight beams sweeping across the cave walls. They searched separately for 4 minutes, but found nothing. The veteran signaled that it was time to return. The prodigy hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The ascent began smoothly until they reached 43 meters. Then something strange happened again. The prodigy's hand slipped once more. His flashlight fell from his grip and vanished instantly into the darkness below 46 meters. Worse still, his depth gauge was attached to the flashlight. Together, the two devices were extremely expensive. At that moment, the 16-year-old genius made a decision that surprised absolutely no one. He turned around and swam after the falling light, diving headfirst into the darkness without looking back. The veteran froze for a second, then immediately chased after him. By then, his air supply had already dropped below 20%, and the effects of nitrogen narcosis were becoming increasingly severe. At a depth of 91 meters, the prodigy disappeared completely. The veteran realized that if he kept going, both of them would die. He finally turned around and fought his way back to the surface, where he immediately called emergency services. Because he had ascended too quickly, the nitrogen in his bloodstream could not properly dissipate, and he had to be rushed to the hospital for treatment. Over the next 3 days, rescue teams searched repeatedly. Sonar scans reached depths of 120 meters and covered more than 2,000 square meters, but nothing was found. Investigators believed the prodigy may have been swept away forever by underground currents. Everyone assumed the tragedy had come to an end, but 3 days later, the veteran woke up in the hospital, overwhelmed with guilt. Convinced his student's death was his responsibility, everyone begged him to give up, but he refused. On August 16th, he personally led another dive into the cave. Since he had not fully recovered from decompression sickness, the rescue team assigned 4 experienced divers to accompany him. 2 divers explored the left side of the cave, while 3 explored the right. One of the divers on the right was Bud Sims, a 40-year-old veteran with more than 300 cave dives under his belt and considered the calmest member of the rescue team. Another diver named Bill was also highly experienced. They searched all the way down to 91 meters and still found nothing. At that point, both Bud Bud and the veteran began feeling unwell, likely due to descending too quickly and suffering from nitrogen narcosis. The two decided to return first, while Bill chose to continue exploring deeper alone. When Bud and the veteran reached 46 meters, they stopped for decompression according to plan. The surroundings were eerily quiet. Then, during the 12th minute of the stop, Bud suddenly became extremely agitated. His body twisted wildly in the darkness. The veteran moved closer and discovered that, somehow, Bud had become tangled in the guideline. The more he struggled, the tighter it wrapped around him. The veteran quickly pulled out his diving knife and tried to cut the line free, but Bud had completely lost control. He flailed his arms violently, making it impossible to get close. Just as the veteran reached toward him again, Bud suddenly ripped the mask right off his face. A burst of bubbles exploded into the water, instantly blinding him. By the time he managed to put his mask back on and open his eyes again, Bud was gone. At that exact moment, Bill was returning from deeper inside the cave. He happened to see Bud sinking into the darkness. Bill immediately swam over, pulled out his knife, and tried cutting away the lines wrapped around him. Suddenly, Bud grabbed Bill in a desperate bear hug, and both men began sinking together. Bill fought with all his strength to push him away and tried dragging him toward the surface, but he simply couldn't hold onto him. At that moment, Bill's air tank alarm began screaming. He was almost out of oxygen, and his own head was starting to spin. He realized that if he kept chasing Bud, he would die too. Gritting his teeth, he turned around and ascended alone. At 9:22 that night, the two surviving divers surfaced, pale and trembling uncontrollably. Just like the prodigy, Bud Sims was gone forever. To this day, neither body has ever been recovered from Emerald Springs. Everyone believed the veteran would never dive again after that, but they were wrong. Not only did he continue diving, he became even more obsessed. That same year, he set a cave diving depth record of 127 meters and later trained 6 world record holders.